Hello everyone, welcome back and thank you for joining us on the Live Unreal with Glover U podcast, where every week Jeff Glover will dive deep into the questions that you are asking. He understands the challenges you are facing on a day-to-day basis because he still works every day on the front lines of real estate, with him and his team closing over 1,000 homes per year. In today's episode, we'll be interviewing another panel of top producers on how to win every listing presentation. You'll learn from Jeff and his panel of top producers how to be successful and turn every listing presentation into a big yes. Now, let's hear from Jeff Glover and his panel of top producers.
Let's hear it for Brent Conley, Teresa Elliott, Joe Zimmerman, Karen Nguyen, and Jason Matt. Let's hear it for them. Come on out, guys. All right. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, this particular panel is talking more so around the listing presentation itself. And so, one thing I know about all five of you, and the reason why you were selected for this, is because I know you guys are great presenters. And so what I'd like to talk about is a little bit about, not necessarily, you don't have to give a live listing presentation here, but more so about why you think you're able to win listings. So I have a list of questions that we're going to go through. That's all right. Before we get into the questions about the presentation, I first want to set the stage, if you will, with why you chose to work sellers over buyers. This is a listing mastery theme. So why sellers over buyers in your opinion? Why was that? How has your business evolved to that? Why did you choose sellers?
I'll go.
Let's do it.
Thanks for having us here, Jeff. Well, ironically, you talked about the DISC assessment today, right?
Yep.
And the high Ds. I learned when I learned the DISC assessment that I was doing the buyers a disservice by actually helping them because I'm a very impatient high D.
Yep.
So therefore, when I was getting in the car with them and they weren't buying a house after the second or third house, I was asking them what the hell was going on. Like,
yes.
what's wrong? Like, why are you not buying this? This was the house to do it. So, playing to your strengths, right? And if you're, we know that if you're a high D, you're typically better on the listing side. So
what's interesting about that story, and I try to tell our higher D agents that as well, and particularly some of our male agents. For some reason, females love showing homes more than males in most cases. I don't know why that is, but that's what we find. And that is, when I went to the showing agent model my first year, I didn't do anything different in terms of generating any more leads. I didn't pay for Zillow leads. We weren't doing anything special. My conversion of buyers increased when I started handing them off to a showing agent. And it's for that very reason, because the showing agents in most cases have a profile, whether it's a high, by the way, the high I or high S is a great profile for a showing agent. They have a profile that gets them excited about the process. So it actually increases your conversion rate. So I hear exactly what you're saying when you say that. So thank you.
I know for me, I actually started as a buyer's agent in the business, and I transitioned into working with listings. It was after our first couple of years, all my buyers ended up having to sell. So I kind of was forced into becoming the listing agent, and then the natural progression, it really occurred to me as, I know it's very cliche, but just the leverage piece of it. Because I kind of did the numbers, I said, well, I can work with 4, 5, 6, not even 6, maybe 4 or 5 good quality buyers a month. But how many listings could I handle? So it was almost like where after I tried to be a good buyer's agent, they needed to sell, and I just kind of switched over into that. And then now I just primarily only handle listings at this point. So.
Yep, love that. Awesome. What else?
So for me, quickly as I got into the business 3 months in, I hired a coach, because when you get in and you don't have any direction, you do that.
Yep.
And
good for you.
Great decision. By the way, they paired me with a coach who was also a mom. When I started in real estate, I had a 6-year-old, a 1-year-old, and then within that 3 months, I became pregnant. And so my coach, also being a mom, said, you should really consider listings because it's going to give you leverage, right? And so that exercise that you went through yesterday, Jeff, of how much time a buyer takes versus a seller, and that I could do some of those activities like fielding sign calls and availability and negotiating offers. I could do that from home with my kids and have minimal time out in the field. So that became the main purpose.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. What else? Why sellers over buyers, and how did you arrive at that decision?
Sure. So, Jeff, a lot like Corinne, I was like you guys, I got the awareness of a coaching program early on.
Yep.
And I had small children, and I didn't mind working, but I wanted to work when I wanted to work.
Yeah.
And so being in coaching, which I recommend to everybody, is that map to success, and having a schedule and knowing who to call and knowing what to say is invaluable.
Yep.
And I could never have done it without.
So for you, given your family situation at the time, it was, you had no choice because you needed the time available to be there for them.
I needed time.
And working with sellers offers you that, or working with buyers is not always the
absolutely.
case. Yep.
Yes, I wanted to be an active mother.
Yep.
So it was great.
I love it. I love it. Anybody else want to add to that?
I wanted to basically leverage my time, and I couldn't do that with buyers. And I don't like showing property. I'll do it once in a while still, and then as soon as I do it, I get reminded that I can't do it again, right? And you know, recently I showed one. I had an investor client buyer for a flip on a very, very high-end luxury, and we're still not in escrow yet. And it's still dangling around there, wasted 2 days, and you know, chasing the commissions, right?
Yep.
And it doesn't structure your life, it doesn't structure your business, and that's something that if you want your time, you want your freedom, and you want your nights and weekends off, at least as much as you can get, then you have to develop a business that you can leverage people.
Yep. Yep, love that. So in your world, does that look like utilizing a showing agent then, or a buyer's agent? Who's handling the showings for you when you're not thinking that you got a live one that's going to buy right this day? Because I know how that goes. It's always the one that has to buy right away that ends up renting an apartment later, right?
Yeah, even when I was showing buyers, you know, I'll show like 5 houses and that's it. I'm done. I'm handing them off.
Yep.
Right? That was years ago. I can still do that because I'm going to pre-qualify that buyer.
Yep.
They better be hot and ready to go.
Yeah.
And otherwise, it's not happening. And I know you just asked me a question, but I forgot it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I forgot what I asked you too, so that's fine. We're even. Let's go to the next question. So, all right. What would you say, because if I'm in the room and we're talking about, obviously, one of the reasons why we did the listing presentation up here, you know, just now is to show somewhat of a unique value proposition, and we shared our value proposition with everyone in the audience. So what would you say would be, just give us one example of a unique value proposition. And by the way, it can be a value proposition that somebody else has as well. That doesn't necessarily make it unique or not, but in your opinion, what is an example of a value proposition that you offer to a seller as to why they should list with you?
Most of it is confidence in knowing the market stats and understanding the comps and delivering that. And as you become scripted and you know your market and you know the valuation of that home, that right there can be delivered. It'll build their confidence in you, and then it's pretty much a lay down. They're not asking for marketing. They're not asking for all that other stuff. So it's really the presentation itself and going in depth. Listening is a big, big thing. If you just go there, present, you're not asking questions, and it's a one-sided presentation, there's no interaction, and that's a big, big issue. And so as you tweak your listing presentations, make sure you're listening for sure, and ask questions.
Yeah, so you would say your unique value proposition would be the ability to ask questions to keep them talking.
Based off scripts.
Yep. Love it, love it. What else? Unique value proposition to a seller. Why would they hire you?
My enthusiasm.
All right, I love it.
You know, it was like you, and grew up poor and just didn't have a whole lot of self-awareness as far as confidence. And so this was something I really loved, and you know, I thought I just wanted to stay home and have 4 babies and raise them, and I by mistake got thrown into this, and through my enthusiasm is what got me the contacts, and you know, I would say I'd just leave it at that.
Yeah.
You know, I've had to become a good businesswoman over the years throughout that, as you know.
Yep. So in the beginning, like so many of us, we have a personality-based presentation that's based on energy and enthusiasm. And I would say that you win a lot of listings because of your energy and enthusiasm. So if I'm in the room and I don't have a lot of natural energy and enthusiasm, would you give a recommendation on that?
If you don't have it?
If you're not naturally an energetic and enthusiastic person.
Showtime.
There you go. Fake it.
No, fake it till you make it.
We have a saying on our wall in the office that says, flip the switch at the door, which means the moment you get to the door, you got a switch on your back, you're flipping it, and it is showtime. It is go time.
It's go time. And
love it. Awesome. What else? Your unique value proposition to a seller, why they should hire you or why they do hire you.
Yeah, I would say I am super competitive, and so when I first got started, I would go out there going, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this listing. And there's part of that that's a really great mentality, but there's another piece of that that can be dangerous because you come across very salesy. And I think most of us, or if not all of us in here, have been to the car dealership and we've experienced what that feels like to be sold, and it's not a good feeling. And so as soon as you start doing that, people resist you. So I go in more with the mindset of I'm going to educate, overcome objections, and close. And if I ever forget that, because my competitive nature sometimes kicks in, I remember an analogy, an example that someone did with me. And if you just kind of turn to your neighbor and you do this one, I mean, just kind of play with me for a little bit, and hey, why are you pushing back? I didn't tell you to push. But that's the point. And when I stop pushing, he stopped pushing, and that's what happens. When we push, they push back. And when we stop pushing, they stop pushing. And so if you just kind of remember that when you're in front of people, when I'm not attached to, maybe I'm not going to take that listing. Maybe I'm going to get in there and I'm going to determine, you know, this isn't somebody I can really help. And when I do that takeaway, all of a sudden they're like, well, what do you think we should price it at? You know, and they kind of come back that way. So I think educate, overcome objections in closing, and not pushing back that way.
I love it. And the example I gave during the listing presentation was, I was ready and had the information to go at them at $899. I knew they wanted $1 million. I would have lost immediately if I started getting into a battle about price at that moment. I knew I was going to have to handle that later, but I would have lost if I gave them pushback right at that moment.
Which is exactly your presentation. Our presentations are very similar, which is you're going to educate them, you're going to overcome objections, and then you close.
Yep, love it. Awesome. Let's hear it.
Unique value proposition, some people in Chicago have heard me say it a long time, is we have an ability to make it about them, right?
Yep.
You know, so I've kind of taken Simon Sinek, if you guys know Simon Sinek.
Yep.
I've taken his Start with the Why, and really my listing presentation has been the same for about 5 years, right? And I just walk in and I say, hey, Mr. Seller, you know, or Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's my job to make sure that you have a perfect real estate transaction.
Yep.
So with that being said, what does a perfect real estate transaction look like to you? So basically what they do is they tell me what they want, right?
Yep.
So if I make it about them and tell them what they want, then I can go. If it's about pricing or marketing or whatever it is, I just go right to them, and then they're great. The funny story about that statement is the first time I ever asked that question, this older woman said, "Oh God, thank you so much." She goes, "I'm so glad you asked me that question." I'm like, "Oh really?" She's like, "Yeah, why?" She's like, "How long am I going to have to get my dog Snickers out of the house?" Right? And nowhere in our presentation was it going to talk about
that
Snickers
was weighing on her mind the last 2-3 days, right?
Correct.
Before you got to the appointment.
You could feel the anxiety come off of her.
Yep. Love that. Awesome. Jason.
I would say one of our unique value propositions is our communication with our clients. Like when I'm on the listing presentation, sometimes I try to ask the hard questions for them, so that way it kind of makes that awkwardness dissipate. So for example, I'll say, and I'm sure you obviously know that one of the major issues with realtors, as you've heard before, is, you know, we hire an agent and then we never hear from them again.
Yeah.
So I try to really set the expectations as far as like how often are we going to touch base. And one of the great things I've really added lately is, how do you prefer to be communicated with? Because I know personally for me, you could call me, you know, 10 times a day, all day long, I will never answer the phone. But you send me one text, and I'm like, if I don't respond to your text, I break out into hives. I'm very, I need to text you back for some reason. So I want to find out, you know, communication for them. What do they prefer? How often do they want to? And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because once we do have that conversation, you just better make sure you do it. So for example, you know, just making sure, and I know Jeff and I talked about this one time in our masterminds, is I took what he said one time and I took it to my team and I said, I just figured this out. I said, here's what we're going to do. What if we could have our clients never have to call us? Remember that? We had that?
Oh, yeah.
So, for example, like we have a game I play with our admins, is I'm like, okay, here's our client, here's our listing, you know, here's the timeline. So I'm a big fan of, even if you don't have any information, call the client anyways. You know, there's 2 rules of thumb. I had a couple agents on the team where, you know, between the offer and the appraisal, or the offer and inspection, whatever that gap is, there's nothing to tell them. So a lot of times people say, well, I have nothing to tell the client, so they don't call the client. I love the fact where I'm like, even after a couple days, hey, this is Jason, I'm just checking in. I honestly have nothing to tell you, but I just wanted to see how you're doing, let you know what's going on, and we're still moving forward. And they love that. Like, I love to make the call, and I verbatim will tell them, I'm calling to tell you nothing. But just that call, and I tell my team that too, I'm like, pick up the phone, call them, text them, you know. But there's nothing to say. Who cares? They just want to hear from us. So I really try to make sure that communication is key for our clients, and I let them know at the beginning that that's one of the things that they can expect from us, because as we all know, one of the biggest problems is you list your house and you never hear from the agent again. So try to set ourselves apart.
So you set the stage with that right from the get-go.
Right off the rip.
I love it. That's awesome. Hopefully you wrote that down. So I owe you guys all an apology. Can I tell you why? Did any of you catch it? Did you guys catch it? No introductions. So mostly interested in your zodiac signs. No, I'm kidding. So tell us, we'll get back to the questions in a second. So we'll come back over here. Tell us your name, what company you're with, where you're from, how long in the business, and you can tell us sales volume or transactions or both from last year. And by the way, I have to run backstage to grab something, so you guys just go ahead and run the show.
I got a mic. Okay? We're good.
Go for it. I'll be right back.
All right.
Excuse for a potty break. He used our intro.
What's that?
I said he's using our intro for a potty break. I love it.
My name is Brent Conley. I am with eXp Realty. That's where I hold my licenses. I do have a couple brokerages as well in Phoenix and in Carlsbad, California, that I have interest in. And volume last year, probably right around the 150 million. This year, we're trending probably somewhere at the 90 to 100, I'm guessing. And transactions, since it's 2 markets, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yep, that's okay. And your zodiac sign, sir?
Aries.
Aries, all right. That's the hot and cold one. Love it. All right, let's hear it. Thank you. By the way, let's hit the solid numbers. Let's hear it for it. Nice job. Okay,
Teresa?
We've known each other now for 10, 12 years. Yeah. We've known each other now for
At least 12.
12, 13 years. Yep. All right, take it away.
Teresa Elliott, Next Home Signature Real Estate in Omaha, Nebraska. And my numbers are skewed right now just because we started a new company.
Yep.
And so I think last year we were like at 75 million. And then now we've added, that was just like 6 of us. And then now there's 28 of us. So it'll be interesting to see what.
Wow.
It's projected for about 150, I believe.
Okay. Perfect.
That's great. Aquarius.
All right. I love it. Communication sign. Let's hear it. Corinne.
So I'm Corinne Wynn. I always joke my name's spelled Karen Nagayan, but it's actually Corinne Wynn.
Yeah, and I always get it wrong, by the way.
Yes, that's okay. I still correct you. I'm out of Metro Phoenix, and I have 2 teams out of Metro Phoenix. I've been in the business for 17 years. I'm with Keller Williams Realty Phoenix. And last year we did just over 300 transactions for 80 million. This year we're pacing a little over 500 for 140 million. So lots of growth.
Ooh, love it. Let's hear it. Nice job.
Joe Zimmerman from the Zimmerman Property Group from Chicago. I'm also with Keller Williams, and we're roughly around 75 to 85 million and about 125 to 150 transactions.
All right, good. All right, let's hear it for him.
I'm a Gemini. That's what
Boom, love it. Gemini twin, Jason.
I'm Jason Matt with Keller Williams in Plymouth, Michigan. We do about 125 units a year. Been in the business for about 19 years now, and Sagittarius.
All right, let's hear it for him. Nice job. So I would say, based on those intros, every single one of you is qualified to answer these questions, and that's why you're up here. So, all right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about your sources of business. When you think of your listing inventory now, or where you think of so far this year or last year, whatever comes to mind, what are your top sources of business for listings, or your top source if you have one that just stands out above them all?
Top sources would be sphere of influence, past clients, and online, including referral sites.
Yep.
We do a lot of that.
Got it. So sphere of influence, past clients. What do you do to get listing referrals from your sphere of influence, past clients?
We do client events.
Client events, okay.
That's pretty big. Phone calls.
Yep.
And, Facebook.
Yep.
Like that. I mean, we'll do agent-to-agent referrals also, stuff like that.
Yep.
So I view that as clients also.
Yep.
That's pretty big for us.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much about it. I mean,
Awesome.
we'll do mailers now and again. It's not consistent.
But it's mostly client events for your database and calling. How often do you call?
4 times a year.
4 times a year.
Yeah.
Awesome. Simple formula. Great. Love it. Top source of business.
72% past clients in Sphere.
All right.
And I would say, this is my claim to fame, I was Viral Marketing's first client.
There you go. They're going to love that.
And as it turns out, I signed back up with them.
Oh, good.
I loved the program. They were the most progressive in doing what they say they're going to do, and getting you out there, and just, I'm one to just want to take that think out of everything and show up. And so just tell me where to show up.
Yep.
And so I stopped just because they started doing so many people in Omaha that I wanted to be different.
Yep.
So, but it's never been the same. And so I'm back with them now. So the 2 things I'd recommend is coaching and...
Did you do one before the other? Which one did you have first?
Coaching. I've been in coaching 25 years.
25 years in coaching and then viral marketing after that.
Yes.
Awesome. Love it.
Been
Cool.
great.
Top source of business.
For me, it's also database, past clients, and Sphere. I think that might be common when you've been in the business for many, many years.
It is.
We have a play on my last name because it's pronounced win. So we have a winner circle, which consists of a Facebook page for all of our clients. We do giveaways. We do client events. We have a whole campaign that goes around that.
So you put all of your clients in a Facebook group.
Yes.
That sounds scary.
No, it's actually not.
So tell me what happens in the Facebook group.
So we do, for every 50 homes we sell, we give $1,000 back to the community. So we're putting things like that, they're getting excited around that. We're doing a teacher give back right now, so we're asking for nominations.
Yep.
We do a lot of charitable, so our mission on our team is to transform the lives of great-hearted people through homeownership.
Yep.
And so that great-hearted people is important to me because in the beginning of my career, I work with some crazy clients and not so great-hearted people. So we've really attracted a really great group of clients.
Yeah.
And so they love to participate and engage when we're doing that type of philanthropic.
You're almost creating a culture of your clientele.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And so it's.
And by culture attracts like.
Like attracts like.
Yep.
And so I looked at this inside Phoenix Metro. There are a couple of really big Facebook page cities. And so I thought, well, and people are in there just sharing, like, does anyone know, a good handyman or just things that are happening in the community? So I thought, how do we create that with our past clients?
Yeah.
So we've done a good job. I think there's still some things I'd like to see happen in there, but that's been a great way to stay engaged and not always call like, who do you know that wants to buy or sell real estate?
Yeah.
And you're providing value, but staying in front of them all the time.
So how often would you say you post something into that group?
We're posting at least one thing a week in there between all the different things that we have going on. So it's pretty active, but they're also posting and engaging as well.
Yep. And in order to get them into the group, somebody has to be friends with them on Facebook, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you are friends with your clients on Facebook as well?
Yes.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
If there's one other thing that I could just add, because I would imagine not everybody in here has 15 plus years in the business like a lot of us have up here.
Yep.
So if I could also, in creating the database, there was a couple of really important things that I did, which was, number one, you talked about orphan clients.
Yep.
I did a lot of REO sales early on in my career because the market fell out.
Yeah.
And I knew I would never be able to retain that bank. So we adopted hundreds and hundreds of clients. And believe me, when you just start putting them into your system, the other agents what is the rate? 80 to 90% of the people get out of the business.
Yep.
And so by the time they go to buy a house again, we have people all the time that call us and say, oh, Corinne sold us a house, 7 years ago. And we look at it and no, I never sold them the house. We were just a listing agent. So that definitely is a great way to start adopting people. And the other way, if we have newer people that are in the business, not that you would do this, but just to give you an idea, when I got in, I was a lender before I was an agent. And so I went and I did a term at H&R Block for 3 months because the sole intention was to build my database. I said, if I get in front of these people, they either need to buy a home, and I'll see all their financials so they can't lie to me, or I'm going to refinance them as the lender. And so I tell you not so you can go, serve a stint at H&R Block or tax, but what could you do to help feed your database as you're getting started in the market? Because as fast as you can build your database, that's building your business, and you don't have to necessarily do that one closing at a time.
Yeah. Yep. Love that. That's great stuff. Thank you. Top source of business.
It's amazing you're going to get the same answer, huh? Past client and Sphere. But we're 68% past client and Sphere.
Yep.
Literally the 36 touch we just run.
Yep.
Quarterly touches.
I was going to say, can you explain for those that don't know what 36 touch is, what that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's so Gary Keller, millionaire real estate agent, came up to 33 touch. Now it's 36 touches that you're supposed to be talking to your clients to, or touching your clients a year. So obviously there's teams out there that do it a lot more. It's really an arbitrary number at the end of the day, but it's just being in touch with them. So we have found that, people in the city of Chicago typically don't have home phones and are not picking up their cell phones if they don't know the number. So text messaging has been huge for us.
Sure.
Personal notes have still, the Brian Buffini personal notes still works very well. Birthday messages, and when they bought their home, and a nice little anniversary. But yeah, just running the 36 touch.
Well, you heard this morning, Martin Boma, that's been doing this for 30 plus years, is still doing handwritten birthday and anniversary cards, right? So
it goes a long way.
There's a lot of power, and it goes back to that article that I referenced, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more of them that come out. As we get more glued to our technology, some of those traditional things are actually going to have better results and carry more value than they did, say, 5-10 years ago, when everyone was writing personal notes, when everyone was door knocking, right? So that's awesome. So 36 touches in a year's time.
Correct,
And that's a combination of email.
Yeah, emails, text messages, phone calls, birthday messages, client appreciation party, right?
Yep.
So
awesome.
And call to actions, right? The call to actions on the emails that we send out.
Okay. Awesome. Jason, number one source of business. Let me guess. Sphere and past clients.
Number one is Sphere and past clients. Yeah, Jeff and I joke around a lot about that, but yeah, that's our number one source of business. I'm very, very systematized, where I highly think that if you're doing something more than 3 times, we got to figure out a system to do it automated. So one of the things we do is obviously with our Sphere, our past clients, just always, we have quarterly call. And I think we must have a 30-something touch system. I never counted how many touches, but we do quarterly calls. We call them on their anniversary. I love handwritten notes, but it's being consistent and having it systematized. So that way, my big thing is, with your past clients, with our referrals, our Sphere, I feel like if you know 2 things and you can do them consistently, you'll be very successful, is when to call them or when to touch them, and then what to say. Because I think that's a lot of times with agents, they may not know when to call them or when to do anything, so they're missing that piece. Or they may know when to do that, but they may not know what to say. So, our big thing is, again, quarterly calls, we do anniversary calls, we send out, newsletters, all that, but it's obviously just making sure we're consistently doing those things and always mixing it up between, having that like infotainment sort of a touch versus always asking for referrals as well too. They're just sprinkling that in there so we're not always begging for business. But the fun thing I like to do a lot of my past clients is because I'm so consistent with making the calls or reaching them, one of the things I'll tell them is I'll say, naturally, I wouldn't be, passing up a chance to bug you for business. Who do you know? So I'll even say that to be funny if it's someone that I talked to for years. I'll even say, hey, it's Jason, just calling to bug you again. You know why I'm calling? I need to know, who do you know I can help out? I need your help. So, but it wouldn't be an every time call, but it's, letting them know that, of course, I'm calling to see how they're doing, but it's also a business call too, and kind of making it lighthearted. So.
Yeah, no, I love that. And for those that don't know, Jason and I actually worked together pretty much in the same real estate office since 2005. And one thing I always admired about Jason is this is back in the day, of course, and I'm sure now it's on a computer, but you always had a 3-ring binder that was, of course, a lot thicker than this. And I would come in, and he was always in the office early, I think probably 7:30, 8 o'clock. I was always in the office early, and his method of prospecting was taking his binder, opening up, and just going through his past clients and calling them. And he would do that for an hour, hour and a half, and I'm thinking to myself, I could never do that. I don't want to keep in touch with my past clients. I'd rather go get new ones. So
yeah, that was the funny thing with us, because I was always trying to see, like, gosh, Jeff is calling all these people that don't know him. It's such a scary call, these expired. So I'm like, I could never do that. So I used to tell Jeff, I'm like, Jeff, like, why they already know you? Just call them. Give me your past clients.
No,
I'm like, why won't you call these people?
Correct.
But we used to always.
Legitimately, he's down the hall. I mean, we're in the same hall. He's on one end, I'm on the other. We're both, headset on, prospecting. He's got his past client book, and I'm calling expires and for sale by owners, both at the same time. And I can't fathom why you would ever call past clients in Sphere, and you're like, I got to figure out.
I can't understand why you wouldn't call people that already know you.
Yeah, that's right.
But it obviously works out good for you, so that's great.
Yep. Well, thank you. All right, so let's talk about what skills in the listing process. If you think about one or two skills that you just had to master or develop in order to be great at listing process. What comes to mind when you think of a skill that you had to master?
Asking questions.
The ability to ask questions.
The ability to ask questions. And it's one of those things where we practice all the time asking questions and making it about them. It's not about us. How can we help you? Being of service, you know. Show up, tell the truth, and don't be attached to the outcome. But it's really just those questions, you know, and the answers are in the questions.
The ability to not talk and talk and talk and talk. The ability to shut up, ask a question, and intently listen, knowing in most cases, by the way, full well what your next question is going to be, right? Because you're following a script?
Yes, well, yes, you have to follow a script.
Love it.
And then the other thing I think is great is just when you ask a question, just shut up and don't say anything.
Yeah, even if silence.
Even if it's silent.
High eyes hate silence.
And
you got to have that uncomfortable couple seconds of silence sometimes.
Yes, and so it's interesting when I do ask a question or I'm talking to somebody and they're like, they answer their own questions. I'm like, wait, I was supposed to answer that.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's just great observation.
When they get ahead of you. Sure.
Yes.
What else? Who else wants to take that one? What skill did you have to master to be a great listing agent?
I know for me, I don't know, it was a skill, but one of the things to go from when I was a buyer's agent to being a real true listing agent is it was mastering the confidence, having the confidence when you're in front of somebody. Because I heard this a while ago and it made sense. Is as a buyer's agent, the people tend to find the property, so they're out there, they find the home on Zillow or wherever they're looking at, and then you're there, and then that's how you introduce to the client. But with a listing agent, they're interviewing the person, so it was having that confidence as far as when you go to the home to really be able to walk in there, and it's almost like I give the analogy to my team. It's like a doctor, so that you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, it looks kind of like, I think I can help you out. I would be like running for the door versus, when, you just have the confidence, like, here, I'm here to help you. Like, even with your listing presentation, a lot of times, I think it was what Nick said is they just want to hear that you have a plan. They just want to make sure that you have the confidence because they want to ask the questions. So that way, it's more of the delivery and having that, mastering that confidence with a seller. Yeah. Because it's so important. Like I said, they're interviewing you to see, are you the person that's going to represent them versus with the buyer they tend to find the home and then you can, they're looking for the house.
The word that comes to mind is conviction. And you develop conviction through practice, role play, and actually getting out in the field and doing it, which obviously you've done a lot of that. Yep, awesome. What else comes to mind in terms of a skill that you need to develop in order to master working with sellers?
I agree with all those. And once you get the listing, I think mastering communication to the seller is very important. You'll get a lot of leads and referrals out of that. If you're carrying a good inventory of listings and you have, say, 35 listings that you're carrying, you have to communicate to them because they wake up every morning wondering what you're doing to sell their home, right? Yep. So if you're communicating to them and telling them or leveraging it out and having somebody communicating, telling them what they're doing, they feel really good about that, right?
I heard a great nugget in there. They wake up every day thinking about you. I mean, not necessarily right at that moment that they wake up, but at some point in the day, you have a listing. There's probably not a day that goes by that their home is on the market where you don't cross their mind at least once or twice.
I mean, Jeff, how many listings have you taken over that, the seller has said, I never heard from my agent?
That's the number one complaint we get. Right. Number one complaint. So they're thinking about you every single day that you have their listing, which means then if we're not communicating with them regularly, they're probably getting upset with us because they're wondering, we're thinking about them, why aren't they thinking about us? Right? Yep. Awesome, love it. What else? Skill we need to master.
I had to learn how to fail and accept it. And correct that action.
Okay,
right?
What does that mean?
Be really self-aware of what you said on that listing presentation and what you did not say, how you were delivering it. And so there's a lot to the listing presentation, and that's where I would say a coach comes into play because or record yourself, right, and play it back. Yeah. And just learn and keep learning every presentation that you do, and it'll give you some really good insight on what your mannerisms are, right? Because we all have bad habits, right? Did we have enough energy when we went into that door, right? And did we sit by the female versus the male? Like all of that stuff matters, and you have to critique it. Yes. And did you explain the comps correctly? Did you explain everything part of the comps, right? Because I'll get ahead of myself and I'll just, driver sign the contract and skip over stuff, and they'll have questions. Now they have doubt. As soon as they start having doubt, they're like, man, I don't know if I did the right decision in listing with this person, right? So really understanding that, and if you're running teams out there, I know there's a lot of big agents out there that hand out listings to their teams. I think it's also matching personality styles. And so if I think that somebody's not going to get along, or they don't have the skill set to be versatile enough, then they're not going on that listing presentation, right? Or I'm going to match them with somebody.
Match the personality style to the person that they're presenting to.
Correct. Or they, if it's a young agent, there's a lot of young agents here, don't be afraid to take an older agent with you just for a prop, right? And it's really acting. And
you're just going to sit here and look pretty, don't say anything.
So, but if you're a young agent, right? And I started when I was 22 or 23, and my baby face, Jeff's baby face, right? We're at a disadvantage when we're really young. And, so I started taking older agents with me, and conversion started going up. I didn't change anything else, right? It was confidence. And the average seller, what is the average age of your seller out there? And the average age of a real estate agent right now. So 47 for real estate agent. The average age of a seller is probably pretty up there, depending on what market you're in. And you've got to kind of match that so you're not completely out of the woods. And I think that really matters.
I love that. And what else? One of the other things I heard in there is that, essentially videotaping the presentation and seeing where your strengths are, seeing where your weaknesses are. We're getting ready to release a program that at the end of the program, the clients have to send us a copy of their listing presentation videotaped.
That's gold.
So that way we can watch it with them, over Zoom or whatever, and then critique them and so forth.
That's fantastic.
That's great. So talk to me a little bit about what you believe the strongest piece of your listing presentation. What is the reason why, when we went through, you saw on the stage a little bit of my presentation. What would you say is your strongest piece to your actual presentation?
I come prepared. I don't like to show up and not know what the numbers are, like you talked about earlier. We pre-qualify, and then we have a really cool book that we drop off the night before and confirm with them that they've gone through that, so they see everything that we have to offer as a company.
So a pre-listing package.
Pre-listed package with, and we put the comparables in there. We do not do a net sheet, which I know a lot of people say you should do that, but I like to see the house first, just to view that. But just being very prepared and know what my competition, or what their competition is, and what the numbers have been doing in the area, and statistics, some statistics, unless they're a driver, I don't show them. So anyway,
great. Thank you. Strongest piece of your presentation?
So I'd say for me, now it's easy because I've done a lot of CMAs, but starting out, when you haven't done a lot of CMAs and aren't really great at pricing, because I think pricing is a really important piece of the conversation. Pricing is my answer, but also being prepared. And it's looking at how much we make hourly. And when I first got into the business and people compared us to doctors and attorneys, I thought, why are they comparing us to doctors and attorneys? I held them at this high level of professionalism. And then I started to realize, we have the ability to make more money than doctors and attorneys. However, unfortunately, we're not given that level of education when we're let out into the world to go help our buyers and sellers. And so I think that's a dangerous thing, and if we can slow down a little bit and make that commitment to preview, the other houses in the neighborhood, study the neighborhood that you're going into, including the cancels and the expireds. You don't want the seller to talk about, well, what happened to this house? And that's not one of the houses that I had in my list. So,
I hate when that happens.
Right, that's a terrible thing to have happen. And so, pulling everything that's been listed in that neighborhood for a year, because they'll know about it. And then if you don't have the credibility to say, I know exactly which one you're talking about, you may not bring it up. You just kind of have it in, I have a separate folder over here. So if I need to reference it, I know about it and I can pull it out. But I don't talk about it unless I need to.
You're still doing 2 or 3 actives, 2 or 3 solds, but you've got it ready to go should they bring it up. Because otherwise you'll look foolish if they bring something up and you're like, which one are you talking about?
That's exactly right. And so I think a lot of times our ego is as such of, we don't need to practice like that. I just need to go. And yes, you don't need to get ready, but you do need to practice that, because if you go on a lot of appointments and you don't get any of them, it's going to affect your psyche. So if you can go out there and feel really good about it and then reflect on what you did, well, and what you didn't do so well, your take rate will go up exponentially and very quickly. So
love it. Awesome. Strongest piece of the presentation. Anybody else want to add to that? I got one more question after that, if you're ready for the next one.
I'll piggyback off Corinne's. So back when Corinne and I were big listing agents for the banks during the recession,
That's right, you guys were in the same market, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah. So we both had Freddie Mac accounts, and under their master listing agreement, everything was covered. So if something went wrong when you had that account, and they would say, check your master listing agreement. It's your fault. You didn't catch it. So everything that a listing agent or a buyer's agent is doing or not doing is your fault. Same thing with leading a company, leading a team, leading, Glover U, all that stuff, it's your fault. You're the leader. So if you don't practice your presentation, if you didn't practice learning the market stats, and you didn't correct something in there, and you don't get the listing, then it's back to your fault. So knowing that puts the pressure back on you. And that might cause you to take action, to practice, because we all dread practice, right? It's not sexy. So, right. The glory's not in the practice, right? But at the end of the day, you got to get the listing, so the practice does count.
Yes. In the video, on day one, Go gets the glory, but Ready deserves the credit. Perfect. Right? And it's interesting you say that, because we hear that from agents all the time. Well, they listed with that guy because he listed it for a lot more. Or I didn't get the listing because they wanted me to cut my commission, and they went with someone that cut their commission. Well, that's not their problem. That's your problem.
So,
right?
yes, and I'll take a little bit of that real quick, just because I think it's important. So I do work, luxury area and in the Phoenix area, and a lot lower. But a lot of the clients are affluent, and if you guys are working in luxury homes, then they know the comps. They know, they've been in half the houses. And if you don't go in those houses, you're at a disadvantage. Now the lower end prices, okay, no problem. You can probably get away with that stuff. But the more unique of the house, you have to make sure you are prepared. So don't set that listing presentation that night. Set it out 72 hours past that, maybe 4 or 5 days if you can. And that would help you gain the advantage to be prepared, so you're not under pressure.
Great, thank you for that. Last question I have for everyone. If I'm in the audience today, obviously I came here for the retreat. The main theme of the retreat is becoming a listing master in your market. What is one piece of advice? I might be brand new, or I might have been doing this for 10 years, but I love working with buyers. What is one piece of advice that you can give me to implement or go back and do or change or add or whatever?
I think for, especially for new agents, but the one thing I think that's, if I could give one piece of advice, and I always say to my team and I tell everybody, is don't be a secret agent. There's so many of us out there that, we kind of hide behind this or hide behind that, but it's like, we're in sales, whether it's, selling couches or cars or houses or whatever, but it's, not to be a secret agent. Let everybody know, this is what we do. I'm in sales, and you're not bothering them, and, we don't get paid by the hour, and there's a difference. I tell newer agents, if I give one quick piece, is that there's a difference between being in business versus being in busyness. Because a lot of agents, they're in the office, they're buzzing around, they're on Facebook, they're making flyers, they're making copies, they're doing this, whatever, but they're busy and they're looking for the paycheck. I'm like, but you're not in business. I mean, don't be a secret agent.
Love it. All right, cool. Let's hear it. Number one.
I would say the same thing of just treat it like a business, right? Whether you're a single agent or a team agent, you are the CEO of your company, so treat it like a business. Listen, be vulnerable, and get a coach.
Love it. Listen, be vulnerable, and get a coach. Perfect.
I would say look for the emotion in the conversation, because that's going to be your lever for the closing, and have stories. So if you don't have any of your own stories because you haven't closed enough business, find stories from other agents, ask them, and use the stories, because the stories are going to be a lot more powerful than just sitting up there with them and soapboxing or pontificating, and that will give you the emotion, and the emotion causes motion. So
love it. That's a great one.
Number one, get a coach. I don't care if you can afford it or not. Get a coach. It's, the way it was explained to me early on was, you have to have a map to drive to another state. And this is your roadmap to success. And if you think about any system out there, if you're trying to lose weight, you follow a system. If you're trying to build muscle, you follow a system. If you're in AA, you follow a system to be successful, you know, so I just truly believe in systems, and, you know, why recreate the wheel again and just have somebody holding you accountable and helping you what to say, helping you, you know, where to prospect, you know, keeping you on schedule. And you go through a lot of life changes and things happen, and having that coach there to support you is I would say, invaluable.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Brent?
100% play the long game and get coaching. And being in the environments that are going to support you to become a great listing agent. And that is this environment. And it's just going to take a long time, and be okay with that. Get your family and friends on board to help you out, because that's a lot of the pressure that is going to come down on you to not hire a coach, right? But you want to hire a coach, right? And so you got to get through the ups and downs of the business. And I think that's really, really important. And it launched my career. I mean, it took me 8 months to sell my first house at Coldwell Banker, right? When I first started my career, because I didn't know what I was doing, right? And my dad was in the real estate business. He didn't tell me anything. So that it really, really matters. And it's just it's a shortcut, but the shortcut's going to take a few years. And rather than being out of the business, because 2 years, most agents are out of the business. And so, and the technology's not going to disrupt us. We're still fine. So
love that. All right, thank you guys. Let's hear it for him. Nice job. That was perfect.
Thank you for taking your time to join Jeff today on the Live Unreal with Glover U podcast. To get started on having an unreal business, take the real estate self-assessment. After you complete the assessment, a member of Glover U will get on a call with you to create an action plan to improve your score. Go to www.gloveru.com/self. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Search for Live Unreal with Glover U on iTunes, Podbean, or Spotify, and subscribe today. Until next time, remember, develop conviction through practice, role play, and actually going out into the field and doing it.